welcome to International University of Japan. As the president of this university, it is my great pleasure to open this International Symposium.
Today, I'm excited to hear more about the Sado Island Gold Mines from the distinguished experts and participants in today's symposium.
佐渡の金山は戦国時代の終わりから江戸時代にかけて日本が鎖国政策をとっていた時代に海外との交流がごく限られていた中で日本独自の伝統的な手工業をベースに世界に類を見ない質と量の金を生産し精錬から小判まで鋳造した稀有な産業遺産です。
日本を動かした江戸を動かしたこの文化、これが佐渡金山の一つの大きな価値であるとも考えておるわけでございます。ぜひこのシンポジウムを通して皆様方から応援をいただきながらですね、また我々としてしっかりと取り組んでまいりたいと考えております。
Now, I'd like to introduce you the distinguished panelists. Professor Yasuyoshi Okada, Professor Emeritus of Kokushikan University. He is the President of International Council on Monument and Sites, ICOMOS, Japan. And participating online from Australia is Mr. Barry Gamble. He's a leading World Heritage consultant. He's also giving us the advices on the Sado Island candidacy. And Professor Ryohei Miyata, former Commissioner for Cultural Affairs, and also he was former President of Tokyo University of Art. And he is originally from Sado Island. Moderating this important panel discussion is Professor Ayako Nakamura of IUJ. And I would like to pass the baton to Professor Nakamura.
My name is Ayako Nakamura, and I'm an assistant professor in the School of International Relations. And from now on, I will take the moderating role for running this panel discussion. Let's start from the first agenda. Agenda 1, the Outstanding Universal Values, OUV, of the Sado Island Gold Mines. Bearing in mind the video you watched already and the presentation by the Professor Shinoda, we'd like to ask the viewpoints of the 3 distinctive panelists based on their expertise. Professor Miyata, I'd like to ask a question. Based on your specialized knowledge in Japanese arts and craft and also Japanese culture, what are the world-class values of the Sado Island Gold Mines?
宮田でございます。日本語ですいません、やらせていただきますが、まずですね、日本そのものが世界の中で一番知られているのは、マルコ・ポーロが、ジパンということで、黄金の島、日本と言ってますが、まさしくですね、佐渡そのものがその役割を果たしていたと私は考えております。そして、佐渡にあるものがヨーロッパの中、あるいはいろんな世界の中でどうして知られるかというところの一つに大きな論点があります。それは江戸期において国の財政が安定していた。安定するというためにはやはり財源が必要です。その財源は天領ということで、佐渡がそれを大いに担っていたということです。先ほど大谷先生学長からのお話にもありましたけれども、その天領があることによってですね、非常に鎖国の中で面白い文化がしっかりと根付きました。一つの例ですが、パリ万博というのがございまして、第2回目から日本が参加させていただきました。その入り口にはドンとですね、名古屋城のシャチホコがあるんです。金のシャチホコ。あれなども多分、佐渡の金の箔を使われていたのではないかというふうな気がします。それと同時に、伊万里や有田の 峠などがございます。そしてその峠を壊さないように船で万博に持っていくためにはどうするかというと、今はプチプチがありますね。梱包材なかったんですよね。何を使ったか分かりますか？どうですか皆さん。浮世絵なんですよ。新聞紙と同じように包むようにして梱包して壊れないように持っていったのがね、どこにでもあった浮世絵なんです。それをヨーロッパの人は見つけて、中身の陶器もいいけど、周りのこの浮世絵がすごいねということになる。そこから北斎や歌丸やそういうものが出てきて、すごいということ。そして日本って何？黄金の国というふうな一つの知られ方があった。それからモネが、印象派のモネの睡蓮などがございますが、例えば皆様方のお国などのお庭はどんな造形でしょうか。一つの代表例ですが、ベルサイユ宮殿のお庭、まっすぐです。木も同じものがございます。ところが浮世絵、日本というものを遠くに感じた彼は点在させて空間を作っている。狭いの。それによってですね、宇宙観を表すことができる。そういう絵を描くことができた。それもまさしくあの当時の安定した生活観、つまり、浮世絵から来ていたというようなことがあると、そういう文化を育てられることができたのは、もちろん江戸幕府の政治もあるでしょうが、元を正すが全ては佐渡の金山の財源があったからこそであるというふうなことがあるわけですね。そんなことをまた私としては最初に申し上げて、ただただ佐渡金山はこんなにいいということではなくて、見方を佐渡からではなくヨーロッパから見て、その証明として芸術家がそれをしっかりと証明しているということもですね、歌うことによって大きなICOMOSに対する価値を作ることができるのではないかと、そんなふうに思いましたけど、いかがでしょうか。
Let's move to the more international perspective. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Gamble. Are you here? Yes, hello.
Hello.
You are a specialist in mining and also as an expert at inscribing historical mining site on the UNESCO World Heritage site list. So based on your specialty and expertise, I'd like to know, in contrast to other international or Japanese mines recognized as a historical sites, what are the distinctive values and the originalities of the Sado Island Gold Mines?
Now, what makes your property outstanding? There is his historical significance, the status of Sado Island Gold Mines in Japan at the time, and the status of Sado Island Gold Mines in the world at the time. So that's historical significance. And then, as the World Heritage Convention is a place-based, a site-based convention, you must have adequate evidence as testimony to that significance. And from what I've seen in Sado Island on several visits, and what I've seen when comparing with the world, Sado Island has both. But it is the heritage of the Edo period, the gold mining heritage, the socio-technical systems of the Edo period, especially from, let's say, 1600 to 1650, that makes the heritage of Sado Island Gold Mines so exceptional. It's that heritage that makes the heritage of Sado Island Gold Mines in a global comparison outstanding. What makes, of course, Japan so different is under the shogunate, this was a period of isolation. We saw developments in the West preceding modernizing, the introduction of explosives, the introduction of steam pumping, many other innovations. And this period of isolation in Japan, this period of seclusion, cut off many of these later inventions. But what Sado Island did, its communities, through generations, its culture, its mining culture, it developed these socio-technical systems under the shogunate that perfected the use of traditional technology. It was organized by the shogunate on a large scale, a massive scale. So the output of Sado Island, the largest gold mine in the world, and probably at that time, the largest producer of gold, which was important nationally to the shogunate, and it was important globally in terms of the role it played with trade. So it's this perpetuation of the use of traditional technology right through to the end of the Edo period that truly makes the heritage of Sado Island exceptional.
Mr. Gamble, you mentioned about the evidence remained in the area. And do you think the quality of evidence is good? It goes to the next agenda, but I think it relates to the next agenda. But from your perspective, the remain evidence is good enough?
Yes, and if I can just divide that evidence into three, principally. We have the evidence of the mining, the primary mining of the large ore bodies, the hard rock which hosts the gold. And we see that in the open cuts that literally slice the mountains. We see that in the underground mine workings, the drainage tunnels, and so on. We see the working of the loosely consolidated alluvial gold mines, the placer mining of Nishimikawa, incredibly rare for that period. Both these evidences are incredibly rare for that period. And then we see associated with both, we see the evolution of integrated settlements that not only provide homes for the workers, but also integrate the manual process of ore processing at a very, very early period.
Professor Okada, I would like to question to you. So you are the president of ICOMOS Japan, and you're well informed about the inscription processes and procedure of the historical sites on the World Heritage Site list. So my question to you is, to what extent does the Sado Island Gold Mines match with the criteria to be a World Heritage Site?
Meanwhile, the operational guidelines for the World Heritage Convention describe or stipulate in the chapter of criteria for the assessment of outstanding universal value that the World Heritage Committee considers a property to have outstanding universal value if the nominated property meets one or more criteria. The guidelines mention 10 aspects for criteria that introduced by Professor Shinoda. In the case of Sado, as Professor Shinoda referred, 2 of criteria, 3 and 4, could be met. To speak further, criterion 4 is applicable to an outstanding example of technological ensemble which illustrates a significant stage in human history. Here in Sado, as you know, under the Tokugawa shogunate, a very traditional but high level of gold production technology was continuously developed for a long time up to the mid-19th century, before the time of modern mechanization. It was very unique and quite different way in contemporary Western countries. And next one, criterion 3, can be applied to a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization. That is, an efficient and large-scale production system, which was adapted to the two different mines. Ayako vein deposit, and another one, Nishimikawa placer gold mine. Do you understand placer gold mine? That is in the form of fine sand mixed with surface soil, including various cultures such as faith, performing arts, and public entertainment, just introduced before. These social traditions nurtured by the communities, by skilled engineers and mining workers. The most important is the fact that various testimonies are very well preserved on site, and at the same time, abundant historic but movable materials support outstanding value of the property. And other than criteria in terms of authenticity and integrity, the property should meet the requirements as well.
Agenda 1 goes to more details about the technologies used in the Sado Island Gold Mines. So I'd like to ask questions to Mr. Gamble. Again, from the viewpoint of the specialist in mining history, we'd like to ask more about excavation and the surveying technology used in the Sado Gold Mine. So my question is, relative to other mines existing in the 17th and 18th century, how was the level of technologies used in Sado? And could you add more detailed explanation about the level and the uniqueness of the technologies in Sado?
Yes, of course. Key production techniques illustrated as a system in Sado, and a system is important here. You've only got to look at the picture scrolls of Sado, the very famous picture scrolls that illustrate the mining system. And that shows the various techniques that were used in Sado, and it also shows the stages of production from the mining itself through the ore processing and smelting, and ultimately the minting of the Koban coins. So the techniques as a system show exceptional functional integrity as a whole. We see evidence of this in the landscape in various ways. The production techniques, we've already heard, are centered on traditional, non-mechanized techniques. We've heard that the technology evolved in an island and a country that was secluded, that was under the isolation policy of the Tokugawa shogunate. But that does not mean that there were not some introductions. There were clearly some antiquated techniques, and we see those from, let's say, Nishimikawa, the placer gold mine, where essentially Roman techniques were used. The Roman techniques we see in properties in what was imperial, the Spanish, Portuguese, Iberian Peninsula, Roman imperial mines, 1st, 2nd century AD. We see those used almost in the same way in Nishimikawa to wash the gold down out of the mountain slopes into the sluices, and the gold is then extracted from these sluices. That's a very antiquated technique. So we see perpetuated some very old technologies, and we see some more modern technologies being integrated, but it's the application of these technologies and the refinement of them, I would say particularly of the ore processing and the smelting, the refining, this purity of gold. This is a result of an anthropogenic process that's been refined through this cultural tradition of mining. So we see this mix of evidence. We see parallel tunnels driven for ventilation. We read about these things in books, but rarely do we see them in mines, and nowhere do we see them in such a rich combination as Sado for the period. We see the absence as well. I mean, let's think about the absence of techniques in Sado. We don't see the use of gunpowder. This was introduced in the 17th century in Central Europe. It reached Western Europe by the end of the 17th century. We don't see this introduced in Sado essentially until after the Meiji Restoration, post-1868. This is very, very unusual. So it's not just the presence of techniques, it's also the absence of techniques that makes Sado Island outstanding.
This is the last question from Agenda 1, and we should focus on the broader socioeconomic context of the Sado Island gold mines in order to understand the meaning of the mines in the early modern period of Japan. Why, as the video shows, the Edo Shogun government put a particular importance on the Sado Island gold mines, and how did the Edo government control or support the gold production system in Sado?
Now, I would like to stress the fact in history. The gold production in Sado was the most important tool for supporting the finance of the shogunate in 2 ways, I think. The first one, tool as a raw material of the real currency money. And the second, tool as the fund for the exclusive foreign trade based on the seclusion policy. Therefore, shogunate directly control the Sado Island and managed to persist the gold production over a long period of time. And people's welfare was enhanced as a governing strategy as well. So how can be said? It can be said the shogunate was the owner of the island and general manager of the gold production. This is the answer to the second question.
Yep. Let's go to the next agenda. Yes, it works. Next agenda, agenda 2, is about evidence-based approaches for disseminating the values of the Sado Island gold mines globally. So in the discussion of agenda 1, we could confirm that outstanding universal value of the Sado Island gold mine. So the next issue is going to be how to appeal these values to the domestic and the international audiences. The question is, in order to appeal the OUVs of the Sado Gold Mines for broader domestic and international audiences, what kind of evidence should be provided them with?
Yes, we have plenty of physical evidence, maybe more than enough for us to understanding the universal value at the site and also in the museum as well. For example, I'm sure that the most impressive one is a huge trace of open cut mining. We call Doyu no Warito. Oh, do you remember the many students visit there, I think. In the Ayako mining area. This is nothing but a visible testimony to continuous human desire to the gold. And the next one, very personally, I was surprised very much to meet the actual remains of Archimedes screw. When I visit the Sado Museum, they call, or locally, call it Suishorin. May I have the picture? No? This device. This device, Archimedes screw, derived from the ancient Roman or even Greek civilization. That is a very old and worldwide technology. And also, we are very proud of inheriting huge amount of historic document. Some scroll explain the minting process. Just introduced before, or in the site of archaeological site, that minting system is very well in this picture scroll.
So Professor Miyata, you were the commissioner Commissioner for Cultural Affairs by last March, am I correct? So based on your professional experiences as a former commissioner of the agency, how do you think about effective methods for globally disseminating the OUVs of the Sado Island Gold Mines?
一つの次の例に文化庁長官の時の話をさせていただきます。ですね、実はですね、私の5年間いた経験の中で非常にドラスティックな経験でした。前日まで実は宗像沖ノ島の遺産を世界遺産登録ということでポーランドに行ったんですけれども、前の日まで文化庁の皆さんとすごく議論したんですが、沖ノ島だけだ。沖ノ島っていうのはですね、誰も入れないんです。それから陸から60キロも海を離れてる。沖ノ島だけ世界遺産にしますよ。あと下の他の人たちは、他のものは世界遺産にはなりませんよっていう会議をしてるわけですよ。これ会議してる時の最中なんですが、それで私はですね、絵を描きました。出かける前に。これ結構大変だったんですよ。なぜかというとですね、 本物の絵を見るとですね、本物を見るとですね、実はこれが沖ノ島、これが大島、宗像、古墳群とかある。これ全部をやりたいと言うんだけれども、ここだけだって言われたんですよ。で、この絵はですね、非常に近くにあるように見えるでしょ、ぴったりと。ところが、これは実はこの辺なんですよ。で、その地図を文化庁のお役人さんに渡されたんですよ。これを見せたら無理だなと。無理だなと。でも、お役人さんはその通りだなと。で、私はお役人もやりましたけれども、芸術家ですので、ちょっとこれは絵を描いて、これを見せて、ロビー活動をさせてくれる。さっきの、この会議をやって途中で何回か休憩があるんですよね。先生もご存知だと思います。その休憩所からコーヒーを飲みに行く間から、ここの会場へ来るまでの間に、委員の先生方に捕まえてですね、それでこれを見せるわけです。これみんな一回でなきゃダメなんだよ。たら、こうなったんですね。この笑顔いいでしょ。ですからですね、何を言いたいかというとですね、先ほども金を取るために鉄がいるというように、それから佐渡がなぜすごいかというと、ヨーロッパからそういうジャポニズムが出てきたりとかっていうふうに視点を変えるというふうなことによってですね、多くのことを学ぶことができるし、獲得することができるというふうなことをちょっと感じました。
So, Mr. Gamble, sorry to keep you waiting. That as an international specialist and been working for the inscription of the several historical mining sites on the World Heritage Site list, for you, what are the effective methods for appealing the OUB of the Sado Gold Mines for the international audiences, including well-informed or ordinary citizens?
Well, I think a very good example, if I may start with this, is the tremendous piece of work produced by the nomination team in Niigata Prefecture. The nomination document itself had that very task to portray the outstanding universal value and the key mix of attributes that could be seen in the various elements in the landscape. They have the task to convey that to an international audience very succinctly. The nomination dossier has to convey to those, it's written in English in this case, and it has to convey to reviewers whose first language will not be English very often. It will ultimately reach a committee of 21 nations, many of whom their first language will not be English. So how did it do that? It used a very clever mix of photographs, diagrams, charts, all kinds of visual communications within that nomination document to successfully convey the outstanding universal value. Interpretation overall is revealing the significance of the site, revealing the outstanding universal value in the case of a World Heritage Site. Now, interpretation can be virtual, it can be a website is an easy one, or a book, a guidebook. That's interpretation. But then you have interpretation on site, and ICOMOS and UNESCO will call that site-based interpretation presentation. Presentation of your sites. Now, presentation of your site is a great way to convey the values of your site. We looked at the Dorino Warito open cut, the slice in that great slice in the mountain. We looked at that as such a dramatic visual representation of value, such a dramatic visual representation. Now, presentation on site. Now, it is unsafe, perhaps, for visitors to go into that open cut, but you have successfully provided key views, distant views to the cut in the mountain, and close views right beneath the open cut where visitors can gaze into it. That is presentation of your site to convey values. And you're doing that without words, using the physical site and presenting it to your visitors in the best possible way. Other presentation on site, you may have interpretive boards that convey that information. You may have site-based apps on your smartphones using QR codes at particular points and so on. There are a range of different ways of communicating off-site and on-site those values. I was so impressed when I visited the Sado Magistrate's office, the reconstruction, which is used for interpretive purposes, but one of the most successful in conveying the values of that very important part of the production process, the ore processing. I already mentioned the processing the partition of using salt, partition of gold and silver on that site is exceptional. There are ways that you have used that reconstruction, not just to show people in the 2 dimensions how these things work, but you invite participation. You create an experience for the visitor, and that experience, experiential interpretation, first-person interpretation, that's memorable and effective in terms of communication.
Then, based on the discussion on Agenda 2, we should move on to the last agenda, involvement and the participation of local communities in spreading the values of the Sado Island Gold Mine. About this agenda, let's start from the Professor Okada, the question to the Professor Okada. The first question, what are the roles of local communities for the historical sites, which is aimed at being inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage Sites list?
Thank you, Chair. Generally speaking, the people of the region of World Heritage Site usually have a decisive role of inheriting the value of the site. But how? First, I think, by means of learning the value of the property itself, and thoroughly understanding it better than any other experts, even come from outside. And secondly, by guiding visitors to the heritage site, and by contributing to the local education at the various social and school levels. Here, I hope you, young generation, to propose any other fresh idea on the role of these communities.
Let's shift the focus to the local communities themselves. So the question is going to Professor Miyata, because I heard that you were born and grew up in Sado. So as a local person, what is the Sado Island Gold Mines mean? What does it mean for them? What is the mines for them?
結局、私の経験ですが、5歳の時に親父と袋の前で正座させられて、そろばんと扇子を置かれたんです。わかりますか？どっちを取るか。そろばんは経済なんです。 戦争は文化なんですよ。私は戦争を取りました。よって何度か能舞台に立つことができました。というように、その恩恵というのがですね、隅々にまで行き渡っているということなんです。経済といっても単なる経済ではなくて、いかにその天領で非常に潤っている佐渡がどのようにして自分たちが活用して豊かな環境に作るかっていうのは、これ大変難しいことですけれども、それをもう勉強することができたという、その両方があるということが大変大きな問題ではないかなと。ここで一曲歌いましょうか。やめときましょう。時間がないんでしょう。文化的なものの価値観というものをしっかりと当たり前のようにも、これが難しいんですよ。当たり前だと思ってるんですよ。ところが本当全然当たり前じゃないんですよ。すごいんですよっていうことを、実は佐渡の人たちみんなにね、もう一度最高の世界遺産ということで気づいて、もう誇りを持っていただけたらいいのかなっていう感じがちょっとしてます。
I think it's combining the point with Professor Miyata and Professor Okada. Local people are very proud of it and they're happy to be that site is nominated to the World Heritage Site list. However, the communication is very important. So I'd like to ask the international point of view. Mr. Gamble, in order to inherit and maintain the values of the Sado Island Gold Mines, I'd like to know the future vision. What kind of overall contributions will be expected to the local people in Sado?
Well, first of all, I think this is very timely, 2022, because last year, 2021, UNESCO introduced a revised, updated, what's called the operational guidelines for the implementation of the World Heritage Convention. In this update, there have been some changes, some new introductions. A very important section 5 of the nomination document, it's about protection and management, used to have a section simply on owners, and that's now updated to stakeholders, owners, stakeholders, even in some countries, this is applicable, even rights holders. So the host community is receiving increasing attention, rightly so, from UNESCO. Local communities are the guardians of our heritage on the ground. The local residents, they genuinely care for the heritage. And they share it not only for today, but with the future generations.
We went through the whole agenda, so we would like to move to the question and answer session from the students. For the IUJ students, the university conducted a day trip to the Sado Island Gold Mine that happened on last Sunday, so that your memories are very, very fresh. So based on the tour and the panel discussions so far, we would like to take a question from the floor.
My question is, how can we increase the sense of ownership of the gold mine heritage in the minds and the hearts of the Japanese youth? Thank you.
これ他の25もある日本の世界遺産も含めてですけれども、やっぱり一番大事なのは若い人たちにそれを愛してもらえるということがすごく大事だと思います。そのためにはですね、やはりもう例えば西三河や鶴島もそうだったんですが、もう表面に現れてない時にはですね、過去にあるビジュアル、いわゆるその絵巻物とか、それから残された道具だとか、そういうもので新たにですね、同じように楽しんでもらう、体験をしてもらうというふうなこともすごく大切なことではないかなと思います。
Professor Gamble highlighted that the traditional technology had been used in Sado Island mines was unique as the unmechanized mining, which is an important component also to select Sado Island mines as a World Heritage Site. I would like to ask Is this technique distinguished in a way that it hasn't been seen even in the closer significant mine areas such as Borneo and Sumatra in Indonesia, or Benguet and Mindanao in the Philippines, for example?
When I spoke about significance, historical significance, and the significance of the surviving remains, if I start with historical significance, Sado Island was of a large scale, organized under the shogunate, had a globally influential level of production, the sheer tonnage of gold that was produced at that time compared to the rest of the world. Now, the techniques that were used, the traditional techniques, were organized on such a large scale. You don't see that mix of techniques applied on a large scale in a successful manner for that high output of gold anywhere else in the world. That's not to say that you don't see traditional techniques sustained through in other sites. Of course, if we talk about alluvial gold, maybe in the Philippines or in the Indonesian archipelago, we may see alluvial gold mining in China. These will have traditional techniques sustained in time. So the importance for Sado is the combination of attributes and the scale and quality of these features. We will not see that anywhere else.
We were able to learn the following 3 points. Firstly, the Sado Island Gold Mine is considered as a distinctive mining site until the highest level of gold production based on the distinctive mixture of the traditional handcraft pre-modern side and also some modern technology in the Edo period. The second, the distinguished production technologies and the production system itself, therefore we can consider to meet the UNESCO's World Heritage criteria. Although, as Professor Okada mentioned, we need to consider effective method for appealing the values of the site toward the global and the domestic audiences. Lastly, for the successful inscription of the mines on the World Heritage Site list, it is essential to involve the local communities into the conservation and the promotion of the mines. And as Professor Miyata mentioned, the Sado people are really proud of the site. And how to involve, as Mr. Gamble mentioned, for the future of Sado, how can we involve those people for promoting and preserving the site will be a very, very important part of this procedure. That's to inscribe the site on the World Heritage Site list. So to close the discussion, we should acknowledge lots of people. Firstly, we would like to thank to all students participating to this panel discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. And also for the people who are watching this event via online platform, we hope this discussion would help you to better understand the OUV, outstanding universal value of the Sado Island Gold Mines. And finally, and the most importantly, we would like to send huge thanks to these 3 panelists participating today. So please give a big round of applause to the panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contributions.
Sado Island Gold Mines is exceptional cultural heritage which led the world in the volume and quality of its gold production without the use of mechanical mining equipment. At the conclusion of my address, I'd like to appreciate again all participants who traveled here and those online for joining the symposium today. Thank you very much.